kind of got kicked off when we managed to sequence the first ancient human genome.
It took 6 years, the brightest geneticists on the planet, and more than 400 Viking Age skeletons spread across Europe and Greenland. What they uncovered wasn't just surprising, it was disturbing, because the Viking genome doesn't match the Viking myth. In fact, it destroys it.
The Viking period, we can see, is, it's characterized by an enormous interest in the world.
What the data reveals is a lost chapter of human history, a buried connection to the East, a mysterious ghost DNA threaded through ancient Scandinavian populations, and a truth that turns the iconic Viking image into pure fantasy. We're about to open the files on a genetic mystery, suggesting that the Vikings were either the first true global citizens or the first global imposters. The Viking stereotype, a total illusion. We all know the Hollywood Viking, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, muscles carved from granite, maybe wearing a horned helmet that never actually existed. This image has dominated pop culture for centuries, but the new DNA evidence just threw a hammer straight through it.
Typical Viking portrait is a blonde Scandinavian, but blondness was actually less common in the Viking period.
A massive international team completed the largest Viking DNA study ever conducted. Published in Nature, it examined genomes from over 400 skeletons, raiders, farmers, traders, chiefs, and families buried across Scandinavia, Europe, and the North Atlantic. One of the first individuals analyzed was a woman named Kata, buried ceremonially in Varnum, Sweden. Everyone expected her DNA to scream Viking. It didn't. Her genome and hundreds of others told a very different story. Shock number 1. The hair myth. The stereotype says Vikings were universally blonde. The DNA says many weren't. Large numbers had brown hair, darker features, and complex ancestry far removed from the Nordic ideal. Shock number 2. The Viking race never existed. The study's lead researcher, Professor Eski Werleselv, put it bluntly. Genetically, the Viking world was not a homogeneous Scandinavian tribe. They weren't a race. They weren't even a tight-knit ethnic group. Instead, they were a genetic melting pot, absorbing people from Southern Europe, the British Isles, the Baltic, the Asian steppe. And here's the twist. This foreign DNA didn't arrive because Vikings captured outsiders. It was already present in Scandinavia before the Viking Age even began. This was not a closed society of pure-blooded warriors. It was an open hub of movement, trade, conflict, and cultural exchange. And that's just the beginning. Viking was never about blood. It was a job. The new evidence completely redefines the word Viking. It wasn't a genetic identity. It wasn't about ancestry. It wasn't even about where you were born. It was a profession, a lifestyle, a brand. If you could fight, sail, and survive, you could become a Viking. This brings us to Scotland, where the most shocking discovery was made.
The Scottish Vikings who weren't Scandinavian at all. 2 skeletons found in Orkney were buried like classic Viking warriors. Boat graves, weapons, the works. Archaeologists long assumed they were Scandinavian raiders. The DNA said otherwise. These Vikings had 0% Scandinavian ancestry. They were genetically identical to Irish and Scottish locals, possibly even Picts. Yet they lived, fought, and died as Vikings. This means Viking identity functioned like a franchise. You didn't need Scandinavian DNA. You only needed to join the culture. The locals didn't just fight the Vikings, many became Vikings. This flips British history upside down. The headless Vikings of Dorset. In Dorset, England, archaeologists uncovered a mass grave, around 50 men, all decapitated. Their execution marks show they were captives, not battlefield casualties. DNA proved they were Vikings. But here's the twist. These men came from different parts of Scandinavia, not the same family or village. This reveals Viking crews were like pirate ships, diverse, recruited, and merit-based. And it ties into a brutal historical event, the St. Brice's Day Massacre of 1002, when England ordered the killing of all Danes. These executed men may have been victims of that purge. The Viking Age wasn't glorious, it was chaotic, multicultural, and deadly. The Scottish Vikings who weren't Scandinavian at all.
Theory: hybrid DNA and the Berserker Rage. This gets speculative but intriguing. Some scientists propose that Berserker Rage, the legendary pain-free battle trance, might have had a genetic basis. Hybrid populations often develop unique physiological traits. Could Viking ferocity be partly inherited from East Asian or steppe genetic influences? It's a possibility the data doesn't rule out. The Varangian Guard, Vikings at the center of the world. In Constantinople, the Byzantine emperors hired Vikings as elite bodyguards, the Varangian Guard. These warriors lived among Greeks, Turks, Africans, and Asians. Many took spouses or partners abroad and then returned to Scandinavia. This explains the surprising presence of Southern European DNA in Viking burials. The Vikings didn't just explore the world, they brought the world home. The sudden end of genetic mixing. Then something strange happened. Around 1050 AD, the gene flow stopped. The mixing ended abruptly. The Viking Age vanished. Why? Maybe Christianity tightened borders. Maybe kingdoms stabilized. Maybe the raiding economy collapsed. But genetically, Scandinavia sealed itself off, and modern nations emerged. The America question. We know Vikings reached Newfoundland. L'Anse Meadows proves it. But did they go further? The controversial Kensington runestone claims Swedish explorers reached Minnesota in 1362. Most scholars dismiss it, but the new DNA findings make long-distance travel less far-fetched. There is also a mitochondrial lineage in Iceland, C1e, rare and typically found in Native American and Asian populations. It appears in Icelandic families with roots predating Columbus. How did it get there? A Viking bringing back a Native American woman is one possibility. Not proven, but possible.
Mythology as genetic memory. Norse myth tells of two races of gods, the Aesir and the Vanir, who fought and then united, mixing their essences to create a new people. What if that myth reflects real genetic history? The Vanir, southern, agricultural, possibly linked to ancient European migrants. The Aesir, warlike, possibly representing incoming steppe or eastern populations. The myth ends with peace through mixing. Exactly what the genetics show. The Viking genome is a fusion. The modern Viking paradox. To understand what remains of that ancient world, scientists compared the Viking genomes with living populations. Here's what they found. Up to 6% of people in the UK carry Viking DNA. About 10% of Swedes do. But here's the paradox. Modern Scandinavians are not genetically identical to Vikings. The distinctive Viking blend, Scandinavian plus Southern European plus Asian, has faded. Time reshaped the gene pool.
The Viking look people obsess over today is not the way the Vikings actually looked like. And the idea of Vikings as a pure ancestral group? Total fiction. They were diverse, adaptive, and open to outsiders. That was their strength. That was their identity. That was the real Viking legacy.